Hi, welcome to Hypnosis 24/7 Live Network. I'm Greg Beckett, motivational hypnotist, with another episode of Time to Get Unstuck, which really it's about moving forward. I have Mercedes Herman with me today as my guest. And the premise of the show, for those of you that are new to viewing us, is the moving forward. There's a lot of words that come up that are, for a lot of people, that are, the same word comes up. And for my journey or my clients or other friends and things, so I take one of those words and I bring on a guest, such as the lovely Mercedes, and we start off the topic with one of the words. So Mercedes, who is a hypnotist, a change worker, and an entertainer, and also a lovely friend. And hi, Mercedes.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. So the word we chose for Mercedes that we're going to discuss today is identity. Yeah.
Yes.
So here we go. Mercedes.
Yes.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm really doing good. I'm doing quite well.
That's good. So identity, what does that bring up for you? What's your thought or feeling or, whatever?
It's the fact of being the person or the thing at the moment. Identity is one of those words that when you think about it, you think you know what identity means, but it's sort of kind of like it hits you in the wall. You can kind of explain it all around. And yeah, you can kind of explain it all around, and you really want to kind of tear it down. It's really a word that we use it so often. What's your identity? Who's your identity? What's the identity? But we really, as I think about it even more, we really don't. We just talk around it. We really don't get to the root of it.
What's interesting is I might have a client, and I did this with myself, and I know that you and I have had conversation on this, and we talk about story. What's my story? I think sometimes we can put identity in place of the word story.
Okay.
I was the youngest kid, and they thought I was spoiled, and I thought it was something else, and we carry that identity with us, right? Sure. And then we're adults, and that identity it doesn't always work for us. Or maybe someone might be, I never have enough money, but then suddenly they have a really great job, but they're still living that life of poverty, so to speak, or lack, and that identity doesn't fit anymore. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, because it just hit on something to me. You just really hit. When you talked about story, you can kind of really think of identity as a chapter.
Right.
And what happens when you just said something like, I don't have money, and the person has a great job. Well, they live that chapter, and they're not living that new chapter, or they're not writing that new chapter. They continue to go back to look at that chapter. So you just gave me something to just think about identity and story. Yeah, it's kind of like the chapters in your life.
Do you feel that identity is static, like stationary, or can it be fluid depending upon who you're with, what's going on?
I think, I think it can be fluid. I think it is fluid. I'm reminded of a story, Star Trek, where they have what they call those changelings, that they're one thing in one place, and then all of a sudden they kind of change into something else, something that's more adaptable for the environment.
Uh-huh.
I think the ones that are static are the ones that end up getting shot. Those are the ones that people could just walk by and say, oh yeah, that's that one. But if you're growing or being unstuck, I don't even know if you're being unstuck, but if you're moving around, you're going to be fluid. I like the word fluid. I recently was introduced to the word fluid about a year ago, and I'm in love with that word, fluidity. I'm just in love with it.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was thinking that when we talk about fluidity, or we talk about identity, or fluid in identity, and that could mean about who you are at work versus at home versus with parental relationship but we're all like characters in a play. And I think we've talked about this before. And we choose to play certain parts until we don't. And so when you're looking for change, you have to do things differently, which then allows you to become someone different, to play a different role, unless you allow people to pull you back into that same place.
I'm a believer that life is a play. And I was taught by a therapist who said to me, we all are part of a play. Some of us get, and I guess with the identity or the part we get, some people are born to those parts, some people are given those parts, and some people audition for those parts. And sometimes when you get auditioned, sometimes when you get a part and you decide that you don't want to be in that part anymore and you want to change your identity, the other person or the community, whatever, tries to bring you back into that identity the way they know you and the way they feel comfortable.
Or they kick you out of the play.
Yes. But one of the things that I found interesting about getting kicked out of the play, kicking out of the play is the last resort that they do. They work, the community works very, very hard to try to see how they can fit you back into that identity. This is the way you're supposed to look. This is the way you're supposed to talk. This is what you do. And finally, when you no longer want to participate in that, usually that's the last resort. And I think a lot of times when I have clients and they'll say to me, my family no longer accepts me, my family doesn't want me anymore. Those are people who have been battered for a long time. And finally the family said, I don't have anything else to do with you. Not that I don't want to have anything else to do with you. They don't have that energy anymore. And they really get to see, I can't change this person. So usually that's why they come when we're doing change work, they come with so much baggage. Yeah. Because the family, whoever the community, have done so many things to bring them back to that identity.
But people rely on everybody playing their part for their identity. So if you change your identity, they don't know what to do with their own identity because you're not acting right.
Yep, that's right. You're not acting right.
You're off script.
Yes, you're off the script. You're messing up the song. You're messing up the
and
song.
All change starts with you changing your identity. I'm not going to be that victim anymore, or I'm not going to be that meek person, or I am going to be more quiet, or whatever it is that's different than what you typically are. And they're like, well, what?
Yes. Because they basically know that their identity, however what part you play in their identity, now all of a sudden, let's say I come in and I know that every Tuesday I'm going to iron your blue shirt.
Right.
Well, I decided that I'm not ironing your blue shirt. I just decided to change it up. And I'm going to now, when you come in and you say, where's my blue shirt? I'm going to say, no, I got a red shirt for you. But see, I don't know the part of your identity, because that blue shirt is when you go to the club or you go to the meeting and you always wear that shirt. So now I've not only messed up your identity, now I messed up the whole other group. So now when you come in there, everybody's gonna say, well, why is it Greg wearing his blue shirt? Who gave him this red shirt?
So what happens as you change identities? What happens to you or me, or, I can talk about it. I know that sometimes it's uncomfortable.
Oh,
but it's more uncomfortable to stay with the old identity of how you identified than to go with a new one that lets you express yourself and be more of who you are. I think everything's about becoming your authentic self, or whatever that words people want to use to your real self, instead of that one that's been trained so well.
Yeah. They have been trained. And when you talk about the authentic self, or the words that they're using now, it's like not fitting into a clothes that you outgrew.
Yeah.
And yet everybody's still trying to put you into that outfit, or you're trying to.
You know, it takes a lot of courage
Yes.
to identify and then decide to break out, because you may lose things that you're so accustomed to, but you don't, but with a challenge of not knowing what you know, what you got.
Yes.
You don't like it. It's horrible, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know you want something else, but you don't know what that feels like, nor how it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So what would go in between there?
You know, I teach a class called The Courage to Change.
Uh-huh.
One of the first things that I always say, when change can either be something that you decided or it just happens. But you need to understand, and I tell my clients in the class, you need to understand that the first moment change comes, you're going to be uncomfortable. And you have to teach your client or yourself that feeling of uncomfortable. You see, what happens is a lot of times we get uncomfortable and then we go like, oh my God. And we don't know what to do. So we immediately try to get back to the way so that we don't feel uncomfortable. But that's the whole idea, that when you do change and you do change that identity, you have to understand that you're going to be uncomfortable and you have to face that fear, because that's what really keeps you. It's the fear.
So that question that I gave you, what's in between, right?
Yeah.
You just explained that. You explained all of that. And I say, then I guess you have to have faith.
Yes.
Because faith counterbalances fear. Faith in yourself or in God, Allah, Buddha, whatever it is your belief system is, or just you having faith that it's there. And you know, what's interesting is when there's change and identity, we think we're one thing right now and we already have to be this thing over here, the second thing. But actually you get to grow to become that, right? Until it fits whatever. Another analogy sort of is, you have someone that's making a $40,000 a year job.
Okay.
And they interviewed and got a $70,000 a year job that they're starting in 2 weeks. Well, the $40,000 a year job person can't show up for the $70,000 a year job, you know, that identity, because they no longer can say, I'm a $40,000 a year person, I'm a $70,000. And how does a $70,000 a year person act and do and work and produce versus a $40,000 a year person? Or what's a really better, I think, someone wins the lotto. They were poor and then they became very wealthy. Because they don't change their identity with money, meaning who they are and how they feel and how they manage and learn and grow, they're broke in a few years after they had millions of dollars.
Because they never practice. And when I got practice, I used to, I worked in a job where I worked with people who were going to retire. And I always started to, I would look at the age group and I knew 5 or 6 years before they were going to retire. And everybody knew that I used to go around with my little spiels, and I used to tell them, you know what? This is the time that you need to start going on vacation. You need to stop going on places. You need to start practicing having this freedom, this time where you get up in the morning and you don't think about what's going on. I said, because you know, the novelty of the first 2 weeks of not going to work and not having some kind of plan. And I used to always constantly, you know, go around and talking to them about the plan. What is it that you're going to plan? And when you were talking about what's in between, and somebody who's got a $40,000, I said, you have to start, people have to start thinking the fact that you're not always going to be at $40,000 a year. So you need to start thinking about, what would I do if I had 50,000? What would I do if I had 60,000? What would I do? A classic example that I wanted to teach somebody how to save money. And every time they got a little bit of money, they would blow it and they would be broke back in the same place. So one day I said to this person, I said, I want you to take $100. And they said, well, I said, I want you to take $100. I want you to take one of your $100. And I want you to do what the heck you want to do with it. Don't think about anything. Just spend the money, whatever. And they would say, okay. So they would
That's easy.
Yeah, and they did. They would spend it up and everything like that. So then I said, how did I feel? And they said, oh, it was okay. It was all right and everything. So then I would tell them a couple of weeks later, I said, take another $100. And I want you to spend it, do what the heck you want to do with it and all that kind of stuff. That extra $100. Let's say you get that extra $100. Well, after 3 or 4 times doing that, they would sit down, but by the 4th time, they would say, you know, if I have that extra $100, I'm going to start to think about the fact, what happens when I don't have it? I got used to the fact of spending it, but now I think I want to be a little bit wiser about it. And that's when I could start to work with them. And I start to say, you need to start to think big, and you need to start to say to yourself, yes, I have the $100, but how can I make it work the best for me? How can I enjoy it better? What are some of the things that I want to do with it? And I think that that's what happens when we have identity change. When we get those changes, we have to start to practice that. You practice going on vacation. You practice, you know, one of the big things.
No.
Huh?
You practice saying no.
Yes. That's the second class that's the second part of the class that I teach. I teach people how to say no.
Have boundaries.
That's right.
As the new identity, as a new person, or as a new feeling, or as this new idea of life that you want.
Yeah, I'm a big firm believer of. I had an accountant who just retired last year, and he took me as his last person that before he retired by tax guy. And everybody, when I got there, everybody kept saying, oh my God, you're somebody special, because he doesn't take anybody anymore. He retired. And I said, really? And I didn't, because I always went him. So when he came to get me, I said to him, I said, Alex, they said I was special. And he says, yes, you are special. And I said, well, why am I special? He said, I've been working with you for the past 30 years. And he says, in every 2 or 3 years, you're reinventing yourself. You have a new identity. He says, and I'm just so excited to find out what you're doing. He said, because you tell me. He says, you tell me what you're going to do, how you're going to plan this. When I decided I wanted to be a hypnotist, I said, I'm really interested in this. And I started to take classes, and I took all kinds of classes. And then when I came back, I said, I'm certified in this, I'm certified in that. And he said, see? He said he wanted to have his last client. He wanted me to be his last client because he wanted to know what I was going to do the next 5 years, because he knew I always had a plan. Because you have to practice at changing your identity, and you have to do that. And I think that what happens with a lot of people, they have to practice it, because just like you said, somebody else's, when you're part of a circle, you're part of a connection. So when you change, you're affecting other people. How many times we tell clients when we're doing change work, we said, what other person is vested in your behavior? Because we can change that behavior. But that changeable, we could help the client change the behavior. But if someone has a vested interest in keeping a drunk, they don't care how much, yes, it's going to help them, but there's a vested interest that they have.
They get some sort of gain out of you being that person.
That's right.
They don't want you to change.
They don't. And once you understand that, and you don't get bitter about it, because that's another part. You get pissed about, they want to change they don't want me to. No, you need to understand that you've been part of that person's life, and you've provided something for them.
Consistently.
Yeah. And now all of a sudden, now you decided that you don't want to do that anymore. You decided that you didn't care. You don't want to do this. As a nurse, also, I was a nurse also. How many times I've had stinky patients, and they smell like a whole house, and the whole family is used to the smell. Everybody's used to it. You go into the house as a visiting nurse, and you go in there and you say, oh my God, it's horrible here, it stinks. And you say to people, don't you smell that? And they go, no. You go like, what do you mean no? You don't smell.
You're like,
Yeah, but and you clean the person up, and then the person and the family's like, well, he doesn't smell. Even the dog and cats won't even come because they're like, who are you? You don't smell like the rest of us. And that's the whole thing.
That's physical change for sure.
Yeah, that's a physical change, and it's the same thing emotionally and patterns that we have. We have patterns, but people, community, they're part of that pattern. So when you make a decision to say, I'm not rowing this boat anymore, I'm stopping here in the middle of the thing because I want to change directions, they're like, no. What do you mean?
Because then they have to look at themselves.
Yes. Because that means you're not gonna go their way, you're not gonna go someplace. And that's that whole thing.
Our time's up.
Ooh, no.
Before I say goodbye, I want to talk to everyone about a really great show that we have, which is Brain Hacks 101. And the host is Dee Verg. And she is a hypnotist, NLP master, just a very talented and caring woman who travels the world speaking with people and learning about efficient and effective ways to hack our brains for change. So her show is coming up, and stay tuned for that and look for her on our Hypno 24/7 live network. So that's a cool thing. She's just a wonderful woman. So for you, Mercedes, thank you for being on the show. And do you have one last parting kind of thing that you want to say, or do you have any thoughts, ideas?
No, this is a real quick thing. Know that when you're changing your identity, either you choose to or someone else chooses it, know that you're going to have that fear. And that fear only lasts 90 seconds. It only lasts longer when we keep looping it.
Yeah, you just can't loop it over and over. You just have to allow it to loop out and decide what you want to be with that, right?
Yeah.
You have to move towards something, not away from something.
That's right.
Yeah. So my question to you is, how could people find you if they wanted to reach you?
If they want to reach me, they can send me an email at mercedes.herman@yahoo.com. Or you can look at my website, which is mercedeshermanhypnotist.com.
Okay, cool. You can find me on Facebook, Greg Beckett, and also hypnosisla.com. So thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you again on another episode. And as I mentioned before, take a good look at Dee Verg's show, Brain Hacks 101. Thanks again for watching. Bye, Mercedes.
Bye.